All right. On today's podcast, we've got Elizabeth Gere, who is an international soul alignment guide, energy therapist, spiritual teacher, speaker, writer, and a whole list of other credentials. But, to me, she's my spiritual guide. We were talking about before the show. What in the house, I call you my Reiki girl, because I met you through Jody, who's my wife, who's done Reiki with you. She told me what you were doing. I was like, I'll try that. I'm up for an adventure, so to speak. So we got hooked up, and I convinced you to come on to talk about this. Uh, so I don't hope you don't mind. I didn't want to call you my Reiki lady, right? I think you'd
No,
be
I don't
more
mind.
offended. But
Not easily offended over here.
I'm trying to
You can
break that
call me
habit of
any of
saying the
those.
word girl. It's apparently a bad thing, but it's just a way. I don't know, man. I got a lecture about that one time, so I'm sensitive to it. But
I grew up
anyways,
on the Eastern Shore,
yeah,
so we
maybe
speak
that's
that way.
it. People talk different in different places, guys, around the world. Just FYI, in case you didn't know.
hmm
But Elizabeth, welcome. Glad you came on, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Dale. I'm glad to be here. So I run a holistic healing company and studio, and I help people heal on multiple levels through their lives, um, upgrade their energy, activate things within them that maybe had been forgotten or stuffed down, and we also heal traumas, in a way that's different. So I'll talk about that, but my background's in clinical psych, and I found that the Reiki is a way that people can come in and heal without being re-traumatized as they speak, or as we work through some of the issues. Like, they can lay on the table and we can clear a lot of the things that may be causing imbalance in their lives by just them having the energy activated within them. The body innately knows how to heal itself. So I found it to be a more successful and productive way of helping people to heal ultimately, and step into their higher selves.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's been a really great experience for me and interesting. Definitely glad I found you, and I've started to dabble in this. Like, even when I'm working with my own clients and the high performance coaching stuff, and we talk about breath work, I go so far to go meditation, Reiki. These are things that are new to my toolbox, and I've been kind of looking to you to kind of help me figure these things out, but before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, did you grow up over here on the shore? Like, did you grow up here? Where'd you come from?
I did. So I grew up on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, just outside of St. Michael's. And I grew up with a pretty normal childhood, though I always kind of knew and felt different in some ways. Like, as a child, I just felt more aware of certain places or situations or people um, than maybe even my parents. They may not have seemed aware of certain things, and I just had that sort of awareness. So I think my intuition has always been with me, but it didn't really I didn't step into that until probably my early 20s. So I grew up out in the country, in the woods, close to the water. So I feel like that connection to nature has always been strong too. And in my later years of intuitive development and then teaching intuitive development, one of the main ways I teach people to ground is just getting out into nature, going for a walk, sitting by the water, getting to the ocean, just as a way uh, to decompress, to clear. So I guess I don't know if I should start from the beginning.
Yeah, roll into it.
I can. Okay. So I walked into my first yoga class when I was 11 years old, which seemed early, probably, or may seem early to some, but it was one of those things. My mom was going to this yoga class at the local YMCA, and I went. And I was surrounded by like 40 to 70-year-olds. And at 11, 40 is old. I no longer believe that way, of course, now that I'm inching closer to that. That's young. But anyway, they accepted me as one of the group. And I always liked being around older people wiser than me. And I've always had this deep respect for my elders. So that was when I fell in love with that practice. I feel like yoga was probably my initial step into it, yoga and crystals back at that age. There was a local metaphysical shop that I really loved to frequent. My dad wasn't always so keen on me. Like, he was like, I don't know what you're doing with those crystals, but it's one of those things. Kind of a religious background with family, and that's fine too. I'll get into what I believe around all that later. But so I feel like that yoga may have been my first sort of initiation into the spiritual world, but I did not know it. I was definitely in my mid to late 20s before I got serious with any of my practices. And, I had that period of time in college where I know a lot of us have, maybe late high school, early college, where there was a lot of partying happening. I went to school in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. And in that, I did become a bit detached from my truth. I feel like any kind of substance use or alcohol will always sort of detach us from our connection to spirit. Even fast food, obviously, can lower our vibration. But I would say my intuition really started opening up for me when I was about 23. Uh, my background from there, I did all the things you're supposed to do. I went away to college, got that degree, then got my master's degree. So my master's in clinical psych. I did work as a therapist in that sphere for almost 8 years. And my intuitive senses were definitely being cultivated during that time. Through spirit and through self-development, I was able to learn how to truly listen to a person, to hear them with a level of depth and presence that I'm not sure I could have learned any other way. So it was interesting to, it was one of those things. As soon as I completed my master's degree, I was like, okay, and I'm quitting my job with the state now to go down to Virginia Beach and learn learn Reiki. So it was one of those things. But I feel like, and even now in what I do in soul sessions, it, the the therapy background serves me, in the conversations I have with the people after our sessions, where we're able to discuss and really get to the root of what's um, maybe causing any kind of misalignment. That is where that part, I think, it is a good foundation to have. So when I was like, I don't know, probably about 23, 24, I started having some very powerful metaphysical experiences, dreams that were and I don't know how far I should go in any of this, but the basics are dreams that were sort of foretelling of future events. And I think I should preface this with, we all have intuition. The more we can tune into it, the more it will become alive and strengthen within us. Like, I'm sure you've had someone call you, and you just know who's on the other end of that call before you look at your phone. Or back when we had landlines and it was, you just knew who was calling you, or you have this premonition about what might be happening or
Or
coming.
even deja vu, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have deja vu a lot, and it's weird. It's from dreams that have been a long time ago, and maybe not like 10 years ago, but
Hmm.
but not last night. And
Right.
I will have deja vu, and I'm like, wow, I dreamt this. Like, I don't know, it's weird, and I don't. It's not something I talk about. I don't go
Yeah.
because I just like people are gonna be like, yeah. And even Jody gives me a hard time about everything. She's like one person on the planet, never lets me off the hook. When I, say silly things. But but yeah, I'll have deja vu, and I'll be like, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. And I feel like in my experience of it, one of the first signs of spiritual awakening is remembering our dreams, being connected to that. Wait, I know I had that dream 3 years ago about what I'm experiencing now. Like, how could that be? And just kind of having or growing that awareness of like, man, there's got to be something out there beyond beyond just what is happening right here for me to have, for you to have had that dream years
Well, it's
before
so it's
something
so
actually happened.
uncanny. You almost don't want to admit it. I mean,
Mhm. Right.
it's it. I mean, this is going to stump me up this whole conversation, because it's so uncanny. I don't know what to make of it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
it's almost like, did that really happen? Like,
Yep.
did I truly? In my brain, like my brain then starts working on that problem. Like, hey, okay, how did you dream something, and it's not, I can remember, that's when I can definitely remember the dreams. And I'm like, I've been here before. I remember this. It happened to me the other day. I mean, you probably seen online, or Jody told you, like, we got the puppy, but like, I don't know, something was going on. And I remember when I dreamt that dream, I was like, man, we're not getting a freaking puppy. Look at that thing. Like, because we got a Labradoodle, and I've been forever like, we're not getting one of those foo-foo dogs in the house. And
Right.
I remember dreaming that dream, and I'm like, well, I know that dream's noise. We're never getting one of those foo-foo dogs in the house. And then whatever that like moment was, and even it wasn't like significant. It was just, we were in the kitchen or something. And I remember I looked down, and there's the dog there, and one of the kids was talking about something. I was like, holy crap. Like, I dreamt this. This
Mm,
is that, this
mhm.
is that time I dreamt and said, we're not getting this foo-foo dog. And oh,
Yeah.
it's so weird. And my brain tries to solve for that. Like, why, how is that possible?
Yeah. And it's more, intuition is a different part of the brain that, there's the right brain and the left brain, but and some of us who, especially if you have a military background or anything like that, or doctors, nurses, these people that are in these more cerebral fields, it can be hard for them to kind of pinpoint, like, am I losing it? Because that's a little out there for what's happening right now, And but I think the more we just allow it to come and don't grip to like the how or the why, the more we just sort of trust that it is our internal guidance system, or internal, like, I like to see it as like an internal navigation system, if you will. And it guides us, and we have to sort of release control and surrender. And I think that can be a big hurdle for a lot of people. Like, us humans, we don't want to release control. We don't want to, loosen our grip on much of anything. So I think when we can just at least even be open to what's coming in, it will flow in more strongly. They talk about, we have the four clairs. Well, there's like 8 or 10 of them, but the four main ones are so clair in French means clear, and so there's clairaudience, which is clair. Oh, hold on. Clairvoyance is clear seeing, clairaudience is clear hearing, clairsentience is like a feeling, and claircognizance is a knowing. Um, so I feel like we all, we talk about the five senses of taste, touch, feel, sound, all of this, but we also have these intuitive senses that can become heightened. And like you say, with just that sort of knowing, like you just sort of had that dream, or you just knew something was coming with that. Um so for me, going back to the um my growing up, it was a wild ride, especially through college. Like, I didn't have any conscious practice at that point or way to harness it. And I think that's where Reiki really um, came in. And to be honest, like you say, I think there was a part of me that was intimidated by these new senses I had seemingly acquired somehow, because they were developing in my mid 20s. And though I thought they were cool, I didn't really invest much time or energy into developing them, mostly because the culture that I grew up in was like, you do the right thing, you graduate high school, then you go to college, and you get your degree, and then you buy a house, and all the things we're supposed to do. But
But what
then
were
very
you
quick.
experiencing? Like, so you said they were developing. Like, what were you experiencing?
Yeah, so and I'll get more into it, but I the way that it started coming up for me was in my counseling psychology job. So, and again, like you said, I didn't talk about it outwardly, except maybe with my dearest friends. And even then, they didn't get me fully. Because when you're talking about some of this stuff, you kind of feel crazy. And in that, I could have shut it down a bit too, because it wasn't accepted. Nobody in my family, nobody in my friend circle were really experiencing this, or having these, or talking about it, I guess. So it wasn't until like maybe 2011, when I left my state job in Maryland doing the counseling. And then in 2012, moving to Virginia Beach. And in Virginia Beach, there's a really interesting place. It's kind of in the middle of the Bible Belt, and there's a very spiritual hub there of people who, they gather to meditate, and they do full moon circles, and they are into crystal, just intuition, crystals, all the things that I had always kind of had a draw towards, but never really experienced other, especially adults, doing those kinds of things. That was more like, oh, you do that when you're a kid or whatever. Um, But during that time, I was blessed to sort of have some time off and space to um, consider what I wanted to do. And the intuition was coming through to me even before that in counseling sessions. I mean, well, I don't even know if I should tell that story. I can. So there was one night, and this was probably, I was like 25, and I specialized in addictions. So I was leading a group of probably, 23 people through a therapy group in addictions. And one of my clients came up to me before group. Um, and I'm just giving you an example of how it started to open up in a way that kind of freaked me out too. But he came up to me before group, and he was talking about his weekend with his daughter and how they went to some concert and they had a great time. And this is kind of a long-standing, couple months I've been working with this guy. But as he's talking, it's a Friday night group, and as he's talking, we're walking into the group center, and I hear him say, "My wife and I are getting a divorce and I'm really torn up about it." And I heard it in my in my head. I heard it. And this may be way too woo-woo for this podcast, but I'm on the story you asked,
Yeah,
so
let's
I'm
go there.
telling you.
Let's go there.
This is how it opened. And I heard it, and I'm like, holy cow, you have had a long week, girl. Like, you need to just go home and be done with work for the week. I was working, 12-hour shifts at that point. But either way, after the group, so I led the group for 90 minutes, and then afterwards there a couple of them had gathered in a room, and he comes up to me afterwards, Dale, and literally tells me the exact same words I heard him say 90 minutes earlier. Like, exact same. He comes up to me and he says, "Miss Elizabeth, can I talk to you for a second?" And he's like, "My wife and I are getting a divorce and I'm really torn up about it." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like what is what is happening right now?" It threw me too. So it was very eerie sometimes the way that I started hearing, but then, uh, my clients in the field of addictions, really, they loved me because I was real and authentic, and they also knew they couldn't get anything past me. But in that, like, if they came in telling me that they didn't use or drink over the weekend, I could easily be like, okay, so now you really want to tell me what you did this weekend, because I already know. Is that kind of relationship of like, it was a therapeutic relationship, but I kind of always knew what really happened without them having to tell me. So I think that's where my intuition, I, I honestly believe it started in the clinical therapy stuff. Like, I was counseling people, and I could hear things that other therapists maybe weren't getting information on. And ultimately that was just my intuition. Um, there's this book that I found years ago. It's called "You're Not Going Crazy, You're Just Waking Up."
Mm.
Because, like a lot of the same things that would put someone into, uh, a mental hospital would be, you're hearing voices, but it's a very different, like when I hear my intuition, it's a different voice. It's not like my own voice in my head, and it's usually only to serve the person that I'm working with, like in service in some way. So spirit, so God, source, spirit, I call it spirit. For me, sometimes I call it God, but it doesn't matter. Just having a higher power, I suppose, is I believe important. Maybe not. You could call the tree. Spirit. So that's where it sort of started to open up. And I kind of knew something was happening, but I also, again, didn't know how to harness it. I had never, none of my coworkers or my peers were experiencing these things. So I don't even think I told anybody at work that was happening for me, but they knew that I was also like, I was kind of like the star therapist, because like, I always knew what was going on with that person, without them having to like spill it, in session or whatever. So that's where it first started. And then I went down to uh, Virginia Beach. I was blessed to have some time off, like I said. And just in that time off, I feel like space is so important for us to harness our intuition. And so I was able to consider what I really wanted to do. I was living a life in that realm. Everything was fine. I had a good job, a good relationship, a decent house, decent car, all the things that we feel like we need. But I wasn't really happy. And I had known for many years that I would one day have a holistic healing center. I didn't really know what that would look like. But I knew I needed to connect others to their truth, basically. So there was no doubt in my mind that this was my path. I just didn't know the how of that. So when I went down to Virginia Beach, I started going to these they call them meetup groups. And again, we didn't really have that on the Eastern Shore here at that time. This is almost 10 years ago. And in that, I learned the art of meditation in one of the groups. And I remember clearly the facilitator sort of going around the room one evening after our meditation hour and asking everyone what they were doing in Virginia Beach. And I said, I was very clear. I said, I came here to learn Reiki. And I guess I had always seen myself being attuned by a female for whatever reason. And I even had an interview the following week with two female Reiki masters to decide who I wanted to be my teacher, because I was very serious about it. Like I took things very seriously back then in my life. So if I decided I was going to do something, I was really gonna go for it. And as I shared this with the group instructor, she informed me, she was like, well, there's a Reiki master and Native American medicine man named Grey Wolf sitting right next to you. And I look over and there's this little Native American man grinning from ear to ear, long white hair. He's holding like a 2-foot smoky quartz in his lap. And his eyes just sparkled and he emanated this like joy and love, and it just sort of poured out of his being. And I hadn't really been around people like that very often, but I've always been able to perceive energies around people and within them. And
And when you
so
say
when I
perceive, like, are you
mhm.
feeling it? You're like, you're just,
So
it's again, your
yes.
intuition. Like when you say intuition, it's just like a feeling. And
Mhm.
maybe you can't put your finger on it, or are you seeing things? Like, what are you like? What's that experience like?
So I tend to try to keep it in the session room. So I tend to try to be relatively normal in my day-to-day life. If I go to the grocery store, I'm not seeing, people walking around that are not alive and these kinds of things. I'm not trying to see those things at that time. I tend to be able to turn it on and off, which helps me. But when I'm sensing it, it's more like, how if you go to the grocery store and you're next to somebody in line, you can just oh, well, I don't know. Can you just like sometimes feel either that they're going through a hard time, or they're just really sort of maybe going through maybe they're just miserable, and they're just, or angry, and it's palpable. It's like even just standing next to them, it feels like I can just sense it. Have you ever felt that? It's like a lower vibration that I can just sense. Have
Yeah,
you
I would say
experienced
so.
that?
I would say like you just feel something's off, or yeah. I don't know how to explain what you're
Mhm.
asking me, but yeah, I could definitely relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason I was so nervous about doing this podcast, is because it's so challenging to articulate like what I actually do into words. You know what I mean? Because it's just energy. Like, I don't know. I just feel that. But exactly that. So, like, you can walk into a room, and children are very, very sensitive to it before it's conditioned out of them. Animals are very sensitive to it, always. So they can often sense a lot of the things that we are conditioned not to feel, like, oh, you don't feel that, or you don't pick up on that. But children, especially, if they ever say, oh, I don't want to hug aunt so and so because she's not good or something, like, I always say, let the kid do what they want, because they're probably right. Like, they're probably feeling something or sensing something that we're just not tuned into.
Well,
But it can happen.
it's
Yeah.
funny. So I had experience with a dog. We were traveling and we came across this rest area, and we had just gotten a Belgian Malinois, and there was this. She was a former Marine, like myself, this gal, and she had this Malinois service dog. And
Mm,
so I had two things to go talk to her about. So I went up and talked to her, said we just got a Mal, and I saw that she had a Marine sticker, and asked if she was a Marine. Got talking to her, and I said, so I see your Mal's a service dog. Like, what's that about? And she told me that she had some sort of, it's been a few years, but it was some sort of heart condition
mm,
that she never knew she had. But the dog one day came to her and was like, just not attacking her, but like all on her, like showing very much concern or whatever. And then
yeah.
she had this event again. I wasn't planning on telling this story, so I don't have the details, but she had
Mhm.
some sort of event, the first one she'd ever had with this condition that she comes to find out that she has. But the dog reacted to it before she had it, and it was not a trained dog. It was, it was just her pet. And
Mhm.
once she, whatever happened to her, she went down, she saw medical advice or whatever about it, and come to find out she has this heart condition. And then after the dog was trained to pick up on it, so now the dog is her warning system that she's about to have an
Oh, wow.
episode, and so that
Uh-huh.
she takes her medicine basically. And
Mm.
I was like blown away. I was like, wow, that is crazy. Like I was like,
Yeah.
just, but it was like when she was telling me that, you remember the show like Lassie back in the day? Like I was like
Mhm.
envisioning Lassie, like what, Lassie, Timmy fell down the well again, like I was envisioning like a Lassie scene, but I could, she was obviously very genuine about it. Like she was just telling the truth. You can, yeah, well, that's maybe back to what you're saying. I can tell when people are lying, not lying. I just have a feeling about it,
Yeah,
but I could
exactly
tell,
that.
as an example, like she was very authentic and genuine. There was
Mhm.
no controlling your conversation or anything that are kind of the tells in that. And so she's explained it to me, and I was just like really blown away. I'm like, wow, the dog sensed something going on with you, and wasn't trained, and now you've gone so far that the dog has been trained, because dogs can be trained. I mean, it was wild. It was just like amazing.
Yeah, animals are like one of the biggest teachers for us. Like they are sensitive and open to all their senses, and they stay that way, and children too, until they're, as humans, we are born with it. We're born very much to know, if you've ever seen, I'm sure you've seen videos or people posting something about like their baby just sort of stares off like it's seeing something, or when they get to be 2 or 3, they're actually speaking about something that they see. And parents might dismiss that as like, oh, Tommy's got an imaginary friend, that's nothing. But if you actually like honed it a little bit more, you might find that he's actually tuning into some other senses. But our culture sort of shuts that down, or it's not deemed appropriate, or whatever. So I think animals can really, they're our biggest healer. At least for me, my animals have been my biggest
Like
teachers and healers in this
I
lifetime,
think
for
we've,
sure.
like, yeah, you're right. Like today, the only way I can explain is we've kind of technologied ourselves out of
Hmm.
our animalistic instincts. Like,
Yep.
and we talked about it before the show. I've read a lot about Wim Hof in the last year, and the things that he's tapped into, like his autonomous system. Like he can control his immune system, he can control his body heat, like these things that we take for, just that's the subconscious system kind of doing its thing. But
Hmm.
he's proven and taught others how to tap into and control those systems, um, which is amazing. And one of the big things with him, we talk about like the ice water stuff, and the fact that like we don't carry brown fat today. Like animals have brown fat, right, which is their
Hmm.
protective layer that keeps them warm, right? You see these deer and stuff in our area, like out in the winter, and you're like, like deer doesn't have a thick wool coat, like or whatever, but they have brown fat, and humans have brown fat too, but our body does not produce it because we're covered in technology. And when I say technology, I mean like our clothes. Our clothes are a form of technology. We figured out how to make clothing for ourselves. But in his book, that kind of explores him, uh, what's it? What doesn't kill us? It talks about
Hmm.
like back in colonial days in Boston, like the Native Americans would come walking in the dead of winter into the town or whatever, and they're not
Yeah.
wearing anything. And the
Right.
colonists are like losing their mind, like running up and covering up with furs and whatever. And Native Americans like, oh yeah, well that's cool, whatever. But it was no factor. Like he was literally out in a blizzard
Hmm.
in Boston, in
Yeah.
the Northeast, and had no clothes on. There was accounts of that, and they were just talking, in fact, like we've deacclimated ourselves to nature a bit, right?
Yep.
Like so
Hmm.
now we can't go out in the cold because we don't expose ourselves to the cold. So our body has no necessity to create the brown fat that it's fully capable of creating to keep
Right.
us warm in cold environments, right?
Yeah. I was reading something just the other day similar to that about sun, and how, Americans especially, were often pale complected, and we want to go out in the sun when the first hot day that comes, but you've got to acclimate yourself to that. And ultimately, if you did that, like if you just gave yourself 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes in a week or whatever it was, you ultimately wouldn't need sunscreen at all, because your skin adjusts naturally and slowly, gradually to the amount of sun that you're getting. Instead, we just, go and burn ourselves the first day that we're on vacation, and don't acclimate and
I'm a big
condition
believer
ourselves
in
to it.
that. And I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's
This is
cool.
this by no means none of this is medical advice. Don't do anything you and
Right.
I
No,
or I are
absolutely.
saying, right?
We're not diagnosing or
Yeah, go
prescribing
talk
here.
to your doctor and lawyer, whoever you need to talk to before you listen to us, right?
Yeah.
But I personally, that I feel that way. I've been talking about that a lot this last year too, about the various cancers. But even like I even say like kind of skin cancer, but I wonder exactly what you
Mhm.
say. I say, we cover ourselves up until we go to the beach or we go sit
Right.
out in the sun, and
Yep.
our skin is an organ, and I think
Mhm.
our skin has not acclimated to the intensity of the sun. But meanwhile, right, talking back to nature, meanwhile the sun has gone from winter to summer.
Mhm.
Our If we were not in our technology, our houses, under our clothes, and we were animals, which we are, by the way, we are creatures of this planet, if we were still
Right.
like acting like natural creatures of this planet, we would be exposed to the sun through that period, through the winter solstice through to the summer solstice. We would be experiencing that sun intensity change, and through that period,
Mhm.
our skin would be acclimating to that.
Yeah.
But we do not do that today. So I just wonder in
Right.
my own brain sometimes, like, is this why skin cancer is so prevalent, right? It was because
Yeah.
our organ of our skin is not ready to take that level of what's it, A rays and blue or red rays and blue rays or whatever it is.
Mhm.
We're not level ready to take that level of intensity. In just like the brown fat thing. Like if we were acclimating to the temperature getting cold, right? Our body would be producing it, and as it gets colder, we would be able to handle it, but we don't, right? Like we forget our jacket, and it's a cold day, and we're like, crap, I'm freezing. It's I think same thing in reverse. I don't know. That's kind of where my head's at on some of that stuff these days.
Absolutely. And I think, even when I'm teaching intuition, one of the first steps that I can give people is just go be out in nature, because we're going to tune back in naturally. If we can tune back into the seasons, eat more seasonally, do things more cyclically, tuned into the seasons, meaning like as the nights get darker earlier, we sort of slow ourselves down. But you mentioned technology and all this. We're staying up till 11, and don't get me started on bedtimes, but like we're staying up till 11 o'clock midnight because we have electricity, we have lights, we have computers, we have blue light coming out of our phones and our devices, and all of this just sort of bombarding our system. And so I just think, like, if we can use the breath work, use the seasonal, just tune into the seasons again. What is it doing outside? And let that be our barometer of, like, okay, this is how I'm going to play my day out, or or get closer, even just one step closer to that would be great, because I think we're so far removed from it often, at least the people that I talk to and work with. Like, we just don't even, we barely notice that it's getting darker earlier when it starts to. So I think even
Yeah.
just tapping into Mother Nature more and realizing, oh, look at this weather, or look at this sky today, or the leaves are falling, just even that can be so healing, and just almost recalibrating for the system. That you mentioned the breath work too. I've been practicing this, and this might be nice for your listeners too. It's called the 1 minute breath, and I don't think it's by Wim Hof. It may be. I don't even know who sort of trademarked it or whatever, but I heard it the other day, and it's basically where you breathe in through your nose for 20 seconds, you hold it for 20 seconds, and then you breathe out through your mouth, like releasing anything that no longer serves your highest good for 20 seconds. And 20 seconds may sound like a lot, and may be a lot for a lot of people, but like you can start with 8. So you could do 8, 8, and 8, and sort of work your way up. And I've just been doing that just to like center and ground myself throughout the day. And even that little shift has been so beneficial for me. So maybe people could try that too. I don't. Have you practiced the breath work at all, or do you?
Yeah, so since I read the stuff about Wim Hof, which I was just really, it really intrigued me. The things that he was doing. They call him the Iceman because he's like up running, marathons in the Arctic and skivvies and bare chested, bare
Yeah.
feet. Like he's
I
just doing.
really want to do it. I'm ready. I want to do it.
Yeah, let me know. I'm game. But it's because I just want to go like with you. When I heard about what you were doing, I was like, I want to go experience it because, right? How do you know? Like, how do you know?
Hmm.
Like, if you check your ego a little bit and go, okay, come on, like and so I've kind of reached that level. I'm one of those old people you mentioned earlier. I'm over 40. I've reached this level of maturity where I'm willing to kind of go just learn, not just
Hmm.
kind of shun stuff off like I don't know. Like so even with that, like reading what he was doing, I kind of like, well, what's the harm in trying maybe some of the breath work or trying the ice baths and stuff? And yes, I do what he calls the Wim Hof method. I do it every day
Hmm.
before I work out. And for those interested, it's out on YouTube. You can search Wim Hof guided breathing, and it's about 11 minutes worth of breath work. But free divers are big into kind of like what he teaches. I believe is a variant of what's called Tumo, and which was taught over with the monks in Asia and various things around meditation and stuff. But man, it activates my aerobic system in a big way.
Hmm.
I was in Houston a while back, and Dwayne Wagner, who's on the podcast, I think number 5, is a Marine Corps buddy of mine. He's probably laugh about this story, but we I went out there. He had been running, and running routinely, and he had this little 4 or 5 mile trek or whatever. He ran around his neighborhood, so he was all excited, and he said, "We're going to go run tomorrow, right? We're going to run." Well, I had not been running, and I knew kind of maybe like Marine on Marine, he's kind of like set me up, maybe like maybe he knew I wasn't running. He's ready to kind of put it to me, and
Right.
but I had started doing the Wim Hof stuff earlier in the year, and I made a habit of before I work out, spend 10 minutes and do the Wim Hof method. And
Oh,
because I
wow.
knew that it just activated my system. Like I could walk into a workout like starting at the top rather than warming up. So
Mm.
before we went out, I got all ready, but I sat in the room by myself and I did the Wim Hof method for 10 minutes. And man, I smoked him. And he was like, so yeah, so we're
It's
running.
like, what have you been doing,
Yeah, so
Dale?
I'm like thinking, I'm thinking he's going to smoke me. I do it, get out there, and man, I'm just smoking. And by the end, we finished like the 4 mile track or whatever. And he goes, dude, what WTF? And he's like, kind of like, I thought you said you weren't running type of attitude with me. Just kind of like, yes, kind of like what's going on here? Like, how do you still got it? And I said,
Yeah.
honestly, dude, I'm gonna tell you, I've been doing this Wim Hof stuff. And then that was the first time I told him about it. Now he's all into it. And he's like you said, he's like, when we go into this thing, like when we go into this escape or summit or whatever he does. Because yeah, it has helped me a lot. It really does. I know a noticeable difference of when I do it, when I don't do it. But I'm doing it every time before I work out, like once a day. It's wild, and so you basically do this breathing method where you take a cyclical 30 breaths, and then
Mm.
you exhale on the 30th exhale. You hold your breath, and how long can you hold your breath? So now doing it, I can hold my breath for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And like while I'm doing it. And so you do 3 rounds of that. And I'm sorry, after you get done holding your breath, when you have the urge to breathe, you go ahead and hold your breath, take a deep breath in and hold it for about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's a round. And you do that round 3 times. And again, I didn't come up with this. This is Wim Hof. It's on
Right.
YouTube. Go check it out.
And
But,
also disclaimer, don't be doing this while you're driving, like, because it can be
oh,
intense.
yeah.
And when
Don't,
people first start like breath
yeah.
work,
Yeah.
you can pass out, like, not to scare anyone, but just it can be intense. A lot more release can happen than what you would think. I mean, just your example of your story with the running, like it can be intense and powerful for sure.
It is, and certainly when I first started it, I did it laying down, and he tells you all this, like make sure you're in a relaxed place, you're lying down, sitting down, whatever. I feel like I'm literally reciting it via script. Feels like because I've heard it so many times, but anyways, yeah, you're lying down, sitting down, you go through it. But yeah, like when you first start doing it, you're going to feel the lightheadedness and whatever. I don't feel that anymore. I really don't.
Hmm.
So anyways, but yeah, even so I do it now, like I say, before I work out, it brings a whole new level of energy to my endurance and uh, uh, aerobic capacity, and I don't know what's really happening. I need to now probably go back to the book and dig into a little more to kind of like, now that I've experienced maybe the result of it, then learn a little
Mhm.
bit more about maybe what's happening. But there's a great book called Breath that dives into this and the art of breathing. And then the book about Wim Hof that's really good is called What Doesn't Kill Us, and it goes through his whole story about like the breathing, the ice water. He takes groups and summits Kilimanjaro like in
Mhm.
one sitting. Like, when you go up like these big mountains like Everest, they go up, they acclimate, they come down, they go up, they acclimate,
Yeah.
they come down. Wim Hof takes people straight up. Like,
Right. Yeah.
using
And
his
they've been
methods.
doing the ice bath. It's just so, I mean, pro athletes are doing this to condition their physical vessels to these levels. And it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to read his book. I haven't read it yet.
So, anyways, but yeah, the breath
Yeah.
work stuff I think is key. I think meditation and breath work, we're not doing it. Like the typical, especially I guess American, is not doing it. We're not breathing right.
Mhm.
That's what the whole book Breath is about. Like how poorly we use what um, our respiratory system is for. How we're holding our breath. We don't even know it. Like when you get an email or text, you hold your breath. Like you go, what was that? And you hold your breath. And so it's real interesting. And I think the breath work kind of forces us to get back into a practice we've probably lost, like the others we've mentioned.
Yeah. And I think also from what you're saying too, I think it's natural to be skeptical about anything we don't know about. If it's novel and we're just learning about breath work or Reiki or spirituality or any of these, more, especially the more woo woo modalities, it's like, I was a huge skeptic before I moved to Virginia Beach. Like, I knew I wanted to learn Reiki, but like, I'm an experiential being. Like, until I experience it and receive results for myself and my life changes, I'm like, yeah, right. That can't be right. That can't be as beneficial or as helpful as they say. And but when I experience it for myself and find these huge healing benefits or, uh, you know, just transform my entire life, I'm like, okay, so there's something to this, and I need to bring this back and teach others because it's not just crazy talk, I suppose.
And I guess, for me, Reiki was brand new. I had never heard of it before. I would give Jody a hard time, like when she was talking about coming to a session with you. I'm like, are you going to do your Reiki today? Like, like what's Ricky doing now? Just kind of
Right.
making a joke of it. But I had never heard of it before. So what is it? What is Reiki?
Yeah. So let me just give tribute to Grey Wolf and finish up that part
Oh,
of
sure.
like
Yeah.
meeting him, and then I do want to share about Reiki. So like when I first made eye contact with him, I just knew that he was going to be my teacher, and so far he's been my only teacher of these mystical arts in this lifetime. I did keep my interview appointments with the other two ladies that I had set up, but they weren't it, and I did choose him. And it was just that remembering, like, I don't know if you've ever met someone where there's just this sense of our souls are remembering each other. So when I met him, he's a Native American medicine man, like I said, and shaman, and he took me under his wing. He taught me the traditional Native American ways of working with the earth, with energy, with stones and crystals, and brought me sort of into this long-standing medicine class that he had there. So Reiki is Reiki is life force energy. We basically channel unconditional love into, and I can't put words to it either. So when I put words to it, it sounds a little like okay, but you really do have to. Also sounds like I'm trying to sell it when I'm like, you have to kind of experience it for yourself to know. But it's basically, I open myself up as a channel and allow life force energy to flow through me. And then the best way I can say it is it's unconditional love, and the body innately knows what to do with that energy. It activates something within people's souls. And again, like I said, he also took me into his shamanic medicine class. So I'm not when I do a soul session, it's not just Reiki. I'm tapping into, the shamanic medicine, I'm tapping into the Reiki. But ultimately, over cultures, it's the same. Like the Japanese have one form, the Native Americans have another form. the Celts have another form, but they're all the shamans, the healers. They're the people running this same energy, and they've tapped in to the natural world enough to be able to do that. And I think the results are in the pudding kind of thing, like it's just, if it works for you, great, and stick with it. And if it doesn't, then that's there too. I don't find many people that they don't get some kind of benefit from it. But anyway, so he took me into his sort of long-standing, over 10 years medicine group, and I was only 27, like 28 at the time. So being so young, they did not readily accept me. I was definitely one of the youngest in the group, and they were a little leery of me being too green, and I probably was. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just know I wanted to learn meditation and Reiki. But anyway, but I feel like he in some ways saw something in me, like he knew I would carry this work far, because I believe, as far as keeping in contact with those people, that I'm the only one doing this work full time. So I feel like he knew that if he instilled this wisdom into me, that I would help many others along my path. And I think that's why he did it, even when other people were like, oh, she's too young, she's not ready, da da da. I mean, I was 27. I was young, and I might have been too young, I'm very thankful and grateful to him. And I was determined and dedicated to, like I said, we won't get too much into astrology, but I have an Aries rising that just, like, if I set my mind on something, I will usually get it done. Like, I'll achieve it, kind of thing. But his biggest advice to me was, because I was taking things so seriously, was like, sweetie, you've got to lighten up. Like, Native American medicine man, like, telling me, honey, you got to lighten up. Like, if you're not having fun with this spiritual stuff, you're doing it wrong. And I still, to this day, hear his voice saying that when I get like too into it, because it's all about like bringing more joy, bringing more laughter. Like, if you're not having fun along the way, you're on the wrong path. Like, redirect, pivot.
Yeah,
And I think that applies to a lot of things we do.
It's a word my clients who listen to this are going to laugh and chuckle, because it's a conversation we have a lot, which is like, the woo woo word is joy, but like, even a lot of what you and I are doing, just through different methods, so to speak, is helping people find joy. And I know that sounds really rainbows and unicorns, but like, if we're honest with ourselves, it's what we're really after. And once we start to get it, like, we're feeling better about ourselves. And it's really interesting, like, say, and it's perspective. It's yeah, like following your passions and finding joy of life. But I like how you're kind of calling out like love of it. I don't know. It's interesting.
I feel like that's all it is. Like, you don't have to overcomplicate it. Like, I do attune people to Reiki. I run classes on it and teach them and activate them, and they get what's called attunements. And it catapults. Like, if you've had a Reiki session, it's like a Reiki session times 1,000. Like, it will catapult your spiritual journey to the level that you're ready for. Only you can't force anybody's progress or process. I've definitely learned that the hard way. But I would say, Reiki was my first introduction to this world of spirituality, and then the dedicated meditation practice. And those two things, I mean, they're just so very important. Grounding, especially. But again, you can do grounding by going to the beach, by walking on the earth. All of that. And then from there, so a lot of people continue to take courses and get certifications and all these things. So literally, Grey Wolf was pretty much my only teacher of the mystical arts. From that point, he sort of activated me to the world of the energy medicine. And I call Reiki, it's kind of in that group of energy medicine. Um, but from there, I was spirit led and taught. And to me, God, source, spirit, it's all one thing. So that's what I call it. Not necessarily spirits like ghosts. That's not what I'm saying when I say spirit. But I really haven't taken any other classes, trainings, intuitive development. I've taken educational things like you saw on the credentials or whatever, but not as far as the intuitive development. He's been my teacher. And while Reiki it's a Japanese healing art, passed down through the lineage by Dr. Mikao Usui. And then we pass that along exactly as it was taught to me by Grey Wolf, is how I pass it along to my students. Which is great, but I believe I got the medicine exactly how I needed it, because as practitioners, we all have like our own, and as humans in general, we all have our own unique energetic thumbprint, which can't be replicated. You know, you see all these like holistic healing places popping up around town, and people will be like, "Oh, are you worried?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." Because I don't believe in competition either. You know, like Grey Wolf attuned me to Reiki, which is a Japanese art, but it was from his vantage point of Native American medicine and shamanism. So I got sort of the best of both worlds in that teaching. And that's the energy that I carry and that I attune others to. So it's not just, I would say it's not just Reiki. Like I've had people who have come to sessions and they've been like, I've had Reiki and this is not just Reiki that you're doing over here, girl. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's definitely not. But it's been cool to see, you know, people's lives just start to like transform and snowball in ways like it's amazing to me. Like they lose the 20 pounds they've been trying to shed, or they get their dream job, or they find the love of their life, or I can't even explain how it happens, but I've seen it time and again where sessions sort of activate something within their soul, and then their body, their physical vessel knows what to do with that energy. Like it knows what to do with life force energy. So it takes it and flies. And it's so rewarding, and it's just really, it's amazing to see. And I could get into my story of my health stuff after that, but it's up to you whether you want me to delve into that, because that was a big part of what really got me into Reiki, because I had to heal myself first. You know, I think we all have to do that, but it's up to you where you
So let's
would
go
like us to
into
go.
what is Reiki. So someone goes, "What is Reiki?" What do you say?
Yeah, so like I say, it's basically life force energy, and you see yourself as a channel, as a vessel. There's a lot more to it that someone would get in a class. It's like an 8-hour class for one attunement, and there are usually 4 levels. So you have Reiki level 1, level 2, level 3, and then master teacher level. Um, and you're getting attunements that allow you to then channel the energy if you decide to learn. Not everybody has, you don't have to learn Reiki to come to a session, but it's basically I act as a channel to the life force energy, and I charge the person up. The person on the table gets sort of almost like we plug them into an electrical, so not, that sounds awful, but you know what I mean. Like we're charging them up, we're amplifying what they're working with. And for people like, you know, you and Jody, like I won't get too much into it, but you all live a very healthy lifestyle too. So I find the people who are doing like living clean lives as well, like exercising, eating good food, you know, limiting other external things, like it really does amplify the work we can do in a session, or in a Reiki session, basically. So, you know, I get some people who are like, come fix me, or I'm going to come to get fixed by you. And then I'm going to go back out and, you know, bar hop and smoke cigarettes and smoke, you know, all the things. But then I'm going to come back 2 weeks later and get fixed again, and it'll be fine. And, you know, that's their path. That's where they are. And I'll still work with them. I'm not picky, but it's, you know, when people are living that, when they're filling their vessel with like clean, healthy life force in the foods that they eat and what they consume, even what they consume, what they're watching, you know, podcasts, TV, any of this, like it all acts to raise their vibration. So I see it as like I have to keep my vibration clean and clear to be able to lift the person who comes in to work with me. Like I don't drink alcohol the night before. I don't drink alcohol very often anyway, but like I just see it as a very, it's a dedicated practice. Like they are paying me to be of service to them, and I keep that channel very clean and clear and elevated. Meditation helps me to do that, and then the Reiki just sort of moves through me. Though I will say, you know, imposter syndrome, it happens for all of us, no matter how long we've been doing this work. You know, some days it's that feeling of like, is this even like, are my hands working today? Is it working? Because I can't feel the energy as much. And it's usually those days when I just surrender into like the source energy, and I'm like, okay, spirit, I can't feel it. So if this is happening, you need to make it happen, you know? And it's those days that the feedback from the client is usually like, holy cow, like, I don't know what you did today, but we need to do that again next time, because that was the best session we've ever had. And it's just like, okay, you know, something is occurring, and often me as a human surrendering to it and just kind of sitting back and letting their process unfold as it will is the biggest the biggest part.
And so I've done obviously Reiki sessions with you, and we're going through the chakras and like what is it? What are we doing? Because you always talk about you talk
Yeah.
about my chakras are off. I still quite haven't nailed what you're saying when you tell me these things.
Yeah.
So what are the chakras?
So the chakras are sacred energy centers within the body. Everything is energy. Even Einstein says this, quantum physics is in there. Everything is energy. So in checking the chakras, so chakras are spinning wheels of light. They're often six-sided. I could probably teach a course on this that would take 8 hours. So we won't go too deep into it, but basically they start at the root, the base of your tailbone. So you have the root chakra moving on up. We have root, sacral, which is about 2 finger widths below the navel, solar plexus, which is at the abdomen, the heart, the throat, the brow, which is in between the eyebrows, and then the crown, which is at the top of your head. And the way I check on the energy is to see if it's going clockwise or counterclockwise. If it's going clockwise, it's open and flowing. If it's going counterclockwise, it's blocked, restricted, or it's in healing mode. So we want the energy centers to often stay, as often as we can, to stay open and flowing. It's not necessarily a bad thing for them to be going in the wrong direction or in the backwards counterclockwise direction, but just to give you an example. So chakras can be very metaphysical, like something in that area. So, okay, somebody's root chakra is off. That tells me a few things. It could tell me that they're not comfortable in their home situation where they're living currently. Maybe they're about to move, so they've uprooted themselves energetically already, or they could have something physical in that area, like pain. So any pain from the hips down, hips, knees, ankles, feet, would indicate root chakra would often be reversed in that case. And it goes for any of them. So someone with digestive issues, the solar plexus would typically be off.
So it's physical. It could be because I know you always ask me that. It's physical. It could be when you say, "Hey, you always tell me my root chakra's off." What's the SP one that you tell me? The
Solar
solar
plexus.
plexus,
Hmm.
brow. So there. It's root, solar plexus, brow. What's the other one? Two.
Oh, root, solar plexus. No, root, sacral. So sacral is the feminine power center. That's just below the navel. So root is the color of red. If you know the color of the rainbow, so it's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So there's 7 main chakras. There's actually hundreds in the body, but we'll just go for 7. So
Start with
um,
seven. Yeah.
yeah, just the 7. So sacral is that governs. So I'll just go through them really quickly. Root governs, like, again, what I just said, grounding to the earth, feeling solid and stable on our own 2 feet, walking forward in this life. Again, could be physical, where it's pain in some area from the hips down. Sacral is it governs creativity, sensuality, sexuality, flow. It's the feminine power center, so it's also receptivity. Solar plexus is, and I'm off the cuff with this, so I'm just trying to remember all the things. Solar plexus governs, like, our ability to have clarity around life purpose. It governs thoughts. Career often is governed by solar plexus. If it's reversed, it can be an issue with a masculine in our lives, past, present, or future. And it can also be an issue with our own masculine energy. Same goes for the feminine power center. Heart when it's open and flowing, fills us with, like, kindness, compassion, unconditional love, not only for others, but also for ourselves. That's really important, because I think a lot of people, that internal dialogue, and this is just the psych background coming in there, but our internal dialogue is not very nice sometimes. We would never talk to someone else the way we talk to ourselves sometimes, like, you what an idiot, da da da. But so just kind of shifting that to be more kind, more loving, that can open up the heart center. And there's lots of things. I mean, you could get into it so deeply that, like, colors will activate certain centers, crystals, foods. There's a tie-in for all of it. And then, so throat allows us to speak our highest truth and feel heard in this lifetime. If I see somebody with a reverse throat chakra consistently, throughout sessions and sustained, like let's say over the course of a year, and they come twice or three times, or twice a month, or like maybe once every 3 weeks, something like that, and stays stuck, that usually will indicate thyroid or a thyroid issue. So I just say, next time you go to the doc, just get it. Next time you have a physical, just get that checked. Though I will say, I had a girl. She was, probably 2.5 years she had been coming to sessions. Throat chakra was always reversed, always reversed, always reversed. One day she comes in and her throat chakra is wide open. And I'm like, girl, what you been doing? And she was like, oh, girl, I spoke my truth, and I'm sounding really country when I say this, but like she had it out with her boyfriend, with her man, or I don't know if it was her fiance or what, but that weekend they had it out. They had an awesome discussion, maybe a bit of a fight, and all better. Like she was all better. Their relationship was all better. Like it just, she had some stuff she had to get off her chest, and she had to speak it out for that throat chakra to open. And they're still together. They do great, but she learned how to speak her truth. And I think in any relationship that can serve us, whether it's a work relationship, love relationship, anything like that. So that can tie into throat chakra too. Brow is usually like sleep or intuition. It governs anything with the eyes, ears, nose, ears. So if somebody comes in with a sinus infection or pain in their right ear, brow chakra will often be off. It sounds it's like, how can you know all that from just this? But it's just kind of feeling into the energy. And again, it sounds really far fetched and out there until it actually is right for like 1,000 people. And then you're like, okay, maybe there's something to that. Maybe that is a thing. Um, so yeah.
So I got root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, brow, throat. Is there a seventh one?
Oh yeah. And then the crown. So
Okay.
crown is our connection to spirit, basically our connection to akasha, which is all that is above us, whether you believe the sky, heaven, the more ethereal realms of things. So it's your connection to higher power, whatever that belief is for you. It could be the tree. I believe in the tree as my higher power. That's fine. I'm not saying I do, but I'm just giving you examples. Some people, even an atheist could get benefit from this kind of work. You don't have to be a believer. And oftentimes, I have the best results with people with military backgrounds, mostly because they come in super skeptical and then they leave like, whoa, there's something to this. Like the military guys that I get, especially that have tried, because most of the people I get have tried everything that you could try, Western medicine, allopathic medicine, to balance and get straight. And or sometimes people don't want to go the allopathic medicine route. They want to stay away from pharmaceuticals, and they just want a different option to not only heal, because I do get people who they're not coming in with any kind of health concern, but they want to heal, and or they want to just elevate themselves to their highest and best good, whether it be in career, in relationship, in whatever that is. So it just helps to elevate their energy to the highest level that it can be, and the body innately heals with that. So I don't know uh, if I went over crown deep enough, but that's that. So somebody who maybe like grew up in a very religious context, in a very religious family, and maybe now they're like considering like other things, or maybe there is something else out there that I wasn't taught about, or that I didn't explore, I haven't explored yet. That their crown could be also headaches. So that's just a more general physical. If somebody has migraines, their crown is likely always going to be reversed. But Reiki is amazing for certain ailments too, like headaches. And that's why I love teaching it, especially to parents, because then they can go through, or animal parents, it doesn't matter, kids, but they can then use that for their kids. Like I used to date a guy who had a 4-year-old daughter, and she loved when I would run Reiki on her. And if he got a headache, I could run Reiki, and within like 10 minutes, the headache would disappear, So it's pretty amazing. I can't really explain it
Well, I'm
fully,
glad
but
you can't
like
explain it, because I can't explain it. I still can't.
it's really experiential. It
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
is. I mean, you can open up to it, but it is intuition, Reiki. It's like a muscle, and you go to the gym to I don't even know what you'd say, grow your bicep or strengthen your bicep. So the same with intuition. The more we listen, the more we tune in, the more we activate and actually use it. So if you're asking for signs, or okay, spirit, show me a white feather within, or maybe even something bigger, that show me, I don't know, a certain number, and then it might come. But the more it comes and the more you get that affirmative response, it grows your trust in it. It grows like, whoa, okay. Like you with the dog situation, like you had a dream about it or you had a vision of it, and then all of a sudden it came. So that strengthens that in itself strengthens your intuition, because it's like, whoa, that actually happened to me. And it's very, very common that we don't believe it or um, subscribe to it until we experience it for ourselves, you know?
Yeah, I guess it's like a, I don't know, an awareness to not be so passive about our dreams and these,
Mhm.
like you said, the intuition. I like how you use that word the best. I think the you know, these feelings that we have, and just kind of setting them aside and not really acting on them or giving them much credit or whatever the case may be, but kind of like exploring that, maybe you know, asking why you feel that way or what that was about, rather than kind of, you know, the woo woo, as we always call it, you know, what woo woo.
Yeah.
But
And I think now I really love teaching, my work with sessions with clients is teaching them how to do this for themselves, because I believe this innate healing capability. And when I say healing, I'm not saying I've got a stomach ulcer, I need to heal it. I mean, it can be a part of it, but could also be I need to heal this facet of my life. Like my relationship life is messed up right now. So I need to heal that or bring that back into a state of balance. And the energy has an intelligence to it. So it just brings everything within you first back to a state of balance. And then that begins to emanate out past your physical vessel into like your interactions, your relationships, your family. We could talk all day about ancestral lineages and healing those. I mean, you can literally heal your DNA and heal past and future we won't get that woo woo today, Dale. We just won't. But you know what I mean? Like, I love to teach people how to activate this within themselves, because I believe that we can all do it. And don't get me wrong, it's still blissful and wonderful to surrender into a session with someone, but at least then you know that you have the capacity to have that healing ability within you, and that the energy is activated, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Um, yeah, so I would just say grounding meditation and Reiki are two of the most important. And I would totally, there's a good book called Wheels of Light, if people have interest in learning more about the chakras. Hands of Light is actually, it's by Barbara Brennan. And that one's a really good one. She does scientific studies. I want to say she's maybe not a doctor, but there are people now who are doing like scientific psychological studies on the effects of Reiki and energy medicine and how it affects the physical body. The same area of the brain that governs imagination is the same area that governs uh, intuition.
yeah, no, it's deep, and like I say, but it's very interesting, and it's very experiential. That's the right
Hmm.
way you say that. But with regard to grounding meditation, because I know that's another thing that you teach and you guide people on, like why is meditation important? You know, and because Reiki, so now I'm feeling like I'm getting a little smarter about it. Reiki is you channeling the energies and working on the chakras, and but meditation, like why is meditation important?
I feel like meditation is probably one of the most important for me, if not before Reiki even. Meditation was the only thing that kept me healthy and well in the beginning of this. Grounding meditation especially. Don't people do, there's all kinds of like kundalini activation meditations. I would caution against that, especially in the beginning, because that can really make like loop people out. I feel like any meditation we do in the beginning, and again, this is just my opinion, my experience of it, and I can only speak from that point. but it should be drawn through the crown down, and then we ground into the earth. And I know about my meditation class that I hold, which will be virtual hopefully soon. I just need to get tech savvy, Dale. I'm not the most tech savvy. I can speak it, but I'm not the most tech savvy just yet. But anyway, so with guided grounding meditation, we just draw the energy down through each one of the chakras. I take them on like a visual journey, clearing everything. And it's also an energy transmission at the same time, but we ground into the earth. And the earth, again, it's the ultimate healer. It has the capacity to heal us of everything very quickly. So if we can tap into that, and our whole lives are so, electronic and frenetic a lot of the times. We have a phone on us probably 90% of our day. I know I do. I'm awful. I stick it in my back pocket. They say you should never do that.
Oh, really?
But,
You're not supposed to do
like,
that? That's what I do.
no,
Why
like
not?
you're
What's
not
wrong?
apparently. It's like, I don't know.
What am I doing?
We won't,
What am I
that's a
doing?
whole other controversial subject. But either way,
How
like,
else am I going to
just
carry the stupid? What do you
right, I
mean?
know. Grounding, probably better back pocket than front, but either way. So just grounding is the earth has the capacity to transmute. And alchemize any frenetic energy, any negative energy. It is our biggest healer. And I think that's why for me, like in work and career, sessions have been so successful, because I talk to a lot of practitioners who do this work and they're like, but I don't know how you get like return clients. And I just, even out in LA, like I'll talk to practitioners who are energy medicine healers, and they're like, I don't know how you get people to come back. And I'm like, how do you not? Like, I don't understand that part of things. So it's just like, because I feel like if the work is working, people will come back. Like, I've never advertised, I've never marketed what I do. This is the first time I've even spoken about it out loud, really, aside from in sessions with clients. So it's just, but it's, yeah, it just works. The work speaks for itself. I will say that. So grounding meditation, basically we're drawing light through each one of those chakras that I mentioned before. We're anchoring it to the core of the earth in our mind's eye. And someone may not see all of those things in the very first meditation. It may take them, like if I used to do a chakra meditation class. It was 7 weeks. Every week we would meet for an hour, every other week we'd meet for an hour, and we'd go over the whole of one chakra, which I might start doing again, because I think people may need it now. But uh and where was I going with that? Sorry, I lost my thought. But yeah, so we take the light down through each one of the energy centers and anchor to the earth. And it's kind of like a session in that it just brings everything back to a state of balance. And I should say too, this path of spirituality is not the path of least resistance. Like, it has been probably one of the most tumultuous, darker spaces that I could have chosen. It's never easy. It's not all sunshine and butterflies, like, oh, I'm doing Reiki now and I'm da, da, da. I've seen a lot of dark stuff, and it comes with it. We're not bypassing the shadows here. We're going straight into the shadows to say, oh, let me heal this. I don't know what other word to say besides shit. Let me heal this shit from the root out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really get at what the root of this is. And that could also be like the psychology background of, like, even in clinical psych, when I was specializing in addictions, like, I didn't ever feel resonant with the way they were teaching it, because we always were bypassing, like, what is the root of it though? Like, at the root of all of it, everything is either fear or love, in my experience of it. Like, it's either the pain is rooted in fear, or the fear is rooted in pain. And so if we can clear that and get to the root of what's causing it, the other stuff just sort of flows out. And like I said, that's not easy. It's not, people who sign on to this work, they're not taking the easy way out. But I also feel like, compared to talk therapy, it's a different way, because someone can lay on the table, we can go in and heal it and clear it, like, for good. And I get people who have been in, clinical therapy or talk therapy, counseling therapy for 10 years. And they're like, I'm just doing this now because I did more in 3 months in Reiki sessions than I've done in 8 years with my therapist. And that's not to say I think I think Reiki and therapy go hand in hand. I'm not saying ditch your therapist and come to me. What I'm saying is it's a supplement. You know, we're all looking for that thing that's going to help us feel our optimum best and live our best lives and vibrate at the highest capacity possible for our physical vessels. And whether that be in career, in our physicality of things, love, relationship, any of it. And it just, I feel like it does that pretty smoothly.
Yeah, it does. Like, again, can't explain it. I know I come out. How do I come out? I come out feeling better. I don't, and not even like I
Mhm.
walked in feeling bad.
Right.
I'm elevated. I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
again, I can't explain it. Even with us going for an hour here, like, I still can't, tell you. But other than, yeah, go experience it. The When it comes to the meditation piece, and I know I've asked you this in person, and I don't know that I've still even grasped the answer. Like,
Mhm.
what are we trying to do? Like, when I'm
Oh
meditating,
man, Dale,
what am
you
I
want me to
trying
put
to
that?
do? Like, what,
You're trying to do nothing.
right?
That's the hard part. You're not trying. So, but here's the thing. A lot of people talk about, oh, you're not meditating unless your mind is completely clear and you have no thoughts. That's false. To me, like I've been meditating for I don't even know, 18 years and like you will never have zero thoughts going through your head. If you have zero thoughts, you're probably dead. Like that's just the way it is. So, I think the best I can say is that we sort of get to this point where you can turn down the volume on all the stress, on all the thoughts. Like I just know for me, sitting for 20 minutes in the morning sets my whole day on a different trajectory than if I skip it. And I've talked to, high profile business people that I work with, and they're like, after a few months of like meditating or Reiki or both, because it's a very similar, it takes you deep into that transcended space where the thoughts sort of quiet down. They never really go away. And people get frustrated with that. They're like, I can't sit, I can't do it because my monkey mind just, keeps going kind of thing. But if you can just slow it down, the things just begin that used to bother you just sort of roll off your back. I imagine like a duck, and you know how the water would just kind of ball up and sort of roll off their back. That's how I feel, or that's an effect of what a long-term meditation practice can offer someone. It's like someone who would come at you with a stressful thing, or maybe even attack you in some way or make you reactionary normally. After a few months of these practices, you're kind of like, whatever, and not in a apathetic way. We still care, but we're just like, I'm not letting that bring down my vibe because it took me a lot to get here right now, and that's not going to bother me today. So I would just say, I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, meditation, I feel like is grounding meditation in itself is probably the best thing I've ever discovered.
So,
I think it's, yeah, it saved my life
so
for sure.
where would someone start, right, with grounding meditation? Then, like, if someone's hearing this going, yeah, I don't meditate, sounds like maybe I should. Like, where
Mhm.
does one start?
So I started with like a guided meditation, and then you can get to the level where you no longer need a guide, but I would say a guided meditation. And you can find there's tons of practitioners out there that practice it. I have every 2 weeks a long-standing meditation group. We meet in person here in Maryland, but excuse me, eventually I plan to have that recorded and virtual so that anybody from around the world can tune into that if they wish. So there's tons of teachers teaching mindfulness and meditation, but I would just make sure or pick someone who's doing a grounding guided meditation if you do, because there's a lot that can sort of, the same way we're raising our vibration. So they say that or in my experience of it, the more anchored we are to the earth, the more we can sort of allow our imagination, our intuition to venture out. Like the further we can journey out, the more we can see in our sessions or meditation, the more grounded we are. Sorry, I don't think I articulated that very well at all,
No,
but
I mean, I think it's, yeah, you're right. I mean, and then what you're doing, and then online, there's stuff, and And again, that's back to what we're saying. That's how I learned to do the Wim Hof stuff. Like he has a
Yeah.
guided, breathing, like it's on YouTube. And
And
so
maybe that's where to start too, is just clearing, centering, whether that's walking. You could even do a moving meditation. That's why many people, they get their biggest downloads, spiritual or intuitive people. When you talk to them, they'll say, "Oh, I got a download." This is going to sound a little woo woo, but in the shower, or where they're out walking without any kind of like external stimulation or sound, because it allows the brain that space to sort of process and receive. So even if you're going to do, Wim Hof breathing or 1 minute breath, or just getting still, and maybe even setting a timer on your phone to have 2 minutes of breath work at, you know, 11 a.m. and 2 minutes at 2 p.m. And even that would give you that space that you can then, um, sort of begin to receive. I feel like, uh, yeah.
yeah, like and you tell me if I'm wrong, and maybe just to throw this out there as an example for people, like when I do it, I lay down. Now, like you mentioned sit down, and I think there's some validity there, like because if you're gonna kind of focus on the light, quote unquote, and kind of coming in and to the crown or whatever, like I get that,
Mhm.
but like the sitting down, like do you sit in a chair? Could you sit in a chair and do it, or
Oh, okay. So when you ask about meditation, you're asking like the basics of like what we're doing. Okay. Sorry,
yeah, that
I'm like going
too.
right. Sorry. Yeah. So the way that I prefer to do it, and the way that I teach my students, is getting a meditation pillow, and you can use any pillow really. But the key is when you're sitting for it. Um, and a lot of people don't know this too. Yoga was originally developed so that the ancient yogis could sit in meditation for longer. These asanas were not developed, these postures were not developed to strengthen the body and get all fit and do headstands and these things like it is now. It was developed so that they could sit in meditation without their body, without their back hurting. You know how if you sit on the ground to wrap Christmas presents, or whatever your belief is, if you sit on the ground for long enough, your back kind of hurts. It aches a little
Well,
bit.
that's why I don't sit. That's why I don't sit
Right.
and meditate. As I'm like, I try to do
Yeah.
30 minutes in the morning. You taught me the RPM, right? Rise, peak,
That's
meditate.
great.
So I
Yeah.
try to go down, and I go down in the basement. It's quiet, it's underground, and like I throw on my headphones. I do white noise on YouTube,
Good. Yeah.
and but I lay down. I can't sit down because I get tired of sitting. So
Yeah. So you may try, and the problem that people who lay down they'll find that they're falling asleep. And granted, you're still getting all the benefits of meditation if you fall asleep, but for beginners, I just feel like it's better to start sitting up, and then if you decide to like sort of slink down to the floor halfway through, then that's fine too. But at least you're starting there. But get yourself some kind of like firmer pillow. It doesn't have to be a meditation pillow, but they work best because you're raising your hips above your knees. So you're sort of sitting um, Indian style, or however you want to call it, on the floor, and your spine is kind of long, with the meditation pillow beneath you. And again, your legs don't have to be crossed if that hurts your knees or whatever. And your hands are sort of open, facing up to the sky. And just go into that breath work, go into any kind of breathing, white noise. I also prefer no noise. So, like, I'll put earplugs in so I don't hear the trash truck next to, I live in town kind of thing. So, um, and I also really like the thing that helped me a lot back 8 years ago was wearing an eye mask. I really like having it completely dark. I see without seeing, so my third eye is very active. Even that's why I keep session room very dark too, because I see more with my eyes closed
mhm.
than I do with my eyes open. So many people might see more in their meditation if they have their eyes covered in some way, like with a sleep mask or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I like about my setup. Like I say, so were you saying I think in yoga, what's it? You have the bosal, is it like that bosal block, or what's it? What's the thing in yoga? The big yoga pillow, is that called a bosal?
Oh, the bolster.
Bolster, yeah, yeah,
Is that what you're
bolster,
talking about,
yeah,
under the
yeah,
knees? Yeah.
yes, yes. So I've got one of those, so I could use that for example, or is that not
Yeah.
tall enough?
No, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
cool.
Yep, that's absolutely perfect. The other thing that you might like is, the blocks that we use in yoga?
Hmm.
Those are really nice to sit on. I mean, it sounds a little bit like, that's not really comfortable," but it's really kind of the perfect height to just get you up a little bit so that your spine doesn't hurt.
Right.
I have one that's like, it's called Hugger Mugger. It's a really, I don't even know if they still make them anymore with the whole, everybody's short on product right now, but, Yeah, I like that meditation pill. It's filled with like flax seeds or something like that. I don't know, but I really like sitting on. I couldn't sit for 20 minutes or an hour if I didn't have something under there. And even if in a crunch, if my meditation pillow isn't in the house for some reason, I'll just pile up two regular pillows that are, a little bit stiffer maybe, and use those. But just getting still, even you asked where people should start. I would say even if you work in an office and you cannot do anything other than like close your computer, turn your phone upside down, put it on, you know, do not disturb or whatever, and just breathe for 2 minutes. You'll find with regular practice, I know, we both did the 75 hard or whatever. It's like adding that little habit into your life. Like you're changing your habit, you're changing your routine. And in time, it just gets a little bit easier. Like I remember when I first started meditating, I was dating my ex who was in the Navy, and he would go off to work really early in the morning kind of thing. And I would sit up in bed at 6 or 7, and I would meditate, and it was painful for me to meditate. Dale. Like I was like, oh, can this be over now? I'm like at 10 minutes, I'm at 20. Like I literally had to force myself to do it. And then one day, after like a couple months of really just like getting myself into that space of doing it, and who knows if I was doing it right, it doesn't much matter, but I was doing it. It clicked. After like 3 months, all of a sudden something clicked, and I was like, oh, that's what this is about. And I've fallen in love with it since then.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the same with a lot of things we do, but
No, I think that's awesome. I mean, yeah, no, I think this has been really helpful. So, how are you helping people today? How can people find you, get in touch with you, and so on?
yeah, so I've just this past week started this online community called the Aura Room. It's free, completely free, and it's a community to basically discuss all things spirituality, wellness, intuition, business, holistic psychology, all those things. Because I found with people in sessions, yeah, I didn't even realize where time was. We've been long, but I just didn't realize, or I've started to realize over the years of dealing with clients in sessions, nobody has any outlet to talk about this stuff with anyone else. Like we come to sessions and we talk about mystical or intuition or how to heal the body, mind wellness, these things. And then they go home and they're not going to talk about it with their husband or their wife because, like you said in the beginning of, when Jody started coming, it was just kind of like we get a little picked on if we start to. So it's that safe, and not that you haven't opened to it since then, but it's just that when we don't have the outlet to talk about it, I think it's important to create that. So that's there. It's called the Aura Room. They can go to, I'm trying to think of the link. It's, well, that'll be in the show notes, right?
Sure.
That
Yeah, I'll
kind
put it
of
in
thing.
there.
Okay. And then I'm starting a podcast too. I don't know how well it will be in the beginning, but it's going to be called Sapphire and Soul Podcast. And we'll just, again, be talking about all things spirituality, mind, body, space, wellness, and basically how to manifest a life of bliss. Because I think, the thing that we're all here to be of service doing is teaching people or guiding people on how to live their best lives. And a lot of us are lost when we come to that. We don't know how to get to that. But ultimately, I think a goal for everybody is we want to be happy. We want to be loved. We want to be happy, and we want to walk in joy. And anything I can do to help people get back to that a little bit is my mission.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, congrats on the podcast stuff. So that's totally cool. I didn't know that. So in the community, I'm going to check that out as well, and I'm sure everyone else will. And I hope I think this conversation's been great. So look. So was it so bad? I mean, we'll be real here.
No,
Yeah,
I've
see,
chilled
you're
out a
all
little bit.
nervous.
I've
You're
chilled out a little bit. And I really love teaching this stuff. So if anybody has questions or they're a newbie to anything spirituality, feel free to email me, reach out in any way. I have courses. I've been teaching meditation and Reiki and shamanic practices for almost 15 years now. So it's kind of like, just reach out. I'm pretty down to earth about all of it, and I would love to help guide people in any way that I can. And
yeah,
no, this podcast being on yours has really opened me to like, oh, okay, I can do this. It's not so bad at all.
yeah,
Look,
no.
once you got me going, I didn't even want to stop talking. So
Yeah, you did great. This has been awesome, and so and now, like I say, it's been an honor to have you on here, and I appreciate you kind of coming out
I
of the
really
shell
appreciate you.
with me. And and biting the hook, so to speak. I hooked out there to get you to come on, and I appreciate it. I'm glad you did it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And it's going to, like I say, having these conversations so people can kind of hear and learn and pique their interest. And someone out there is going to hear this, and it's going to help, give a little push or calling to maybe try some more of this stuff out and get the benefit of it. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm grateful that you invited me on to share, and like I say, just be of service any way I can. So it's been fun. Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's been great. All right, well, we'll wrap it up. And again, thanks so much, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank you.